The Zorvans were an ancient race, tall, cold-skinned, and ruled by logic. Their ships floated like black knives through the stars. For thousands of years they conquered without question. No species had ever resisted them for long. But this was something new. Commander Threx stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Shadow Maw, staring at the giant pod they had recovered from the edge of the wrecked human fleet. The pod was smooth, dark, and heavy. No markings, no doors. Strange energy patterns that pulsed once every 10 seconds. Like a heartbeat. "We believe it's a human weapon," said Dravik, the science officer. His voice was cold and certain. "Our scans can't penetrate it. It resists all signals. When we tried to open it, one of our tools exploded." Commander Threx narrowed his yellow eyes. "Send it to the lab. Study it. I want to know what it does before we use it." Dravik bowed. "Yes, Commander. But one more thing. It's alive." The bridge went silent. "Alive," Threx repeated. Dravik nodded. "There's a life form inside. Human, we think. Asleep, or frozen." Commander Threx turned his head slightly. "Then why does it feel like it's watching us?" Down in the research lab, the pod sat in the center of a magnetic chamber. Dozens of Zorvan scientists circled it, lights scanned it, robotic arms poked and prodded. Nothing worked. They called it Specimen Zero. Each night, the power in the lab flickered. Systems glitched. Alarms rang for no reason. But the pod never moved, never made a sound, until day 5. That night, the security feed recorded a strange event. At exactly 3 o'clock ship time, all lights in the lab went out for 6 seconds. When they came back on, the pod had shifted slightly. Not rolled, not dragged. Just moved, like it had teleported an inch to the left. No one noticed at first. But the AI running the lab flagged the change, and then the heartbeat inside the pod doubled. Thud-thud. Thud-thud. Doctor. Ordered. A full lockdown. Armed guards posted. The science team began running DNA scans. What they found shocked them. "It's not a weapon," Dravik told the commander. "It's a human. But not like the ones we've captured before. This one has markers we've never seen. Enhanced strength, regeneration, neural complexity off the charts." Commander Threx grunted. "A super soldier?" Dravik shook his head. "More than that, I think it's experimental. Maybe a prototype. Something even the humans were afraid of." Threx crossed his arms. Then why was it drifting in space? Maybe they lost control of it. Maybe Threx thought they tried to lose it. The heartbeat was now steady and fast, like someone dreaming of war. On day 8, the first death happened. Technician Vels was alone in the lab checking the power grid. The cameras caught him walking past the pod, and then static. 5 minutes later, Vels was found lying face down on the floor. No wounds, no trauma. But his eyes were open. His brain had shut down completely, as if something had whispered into his mind and broke it. The pod remained still. Commander Threx ordered full isolation. "Seal the chamber. Nobody goes in unless I say so." But it was too late. The pod was waking up in his private quarters. Threx reviewed human files, reports, battles, rumors. There were whispers of a black project. A failed experiment called Project Revenant. A human designed not to fight wars, but to end them. Mindman dropped into enemy territory who would burn entire planets if unleashed. Officially, the program was canceled, unstable, dangerous, but maybe, Threx thought. The pod in his lab wasn't just real, it was the last piece of Project Revenant. On day 10, the heartbeat inside the pod stopped. No sound. No pulse. Flatline. Dravik called it in. It's gone. Whatever was inside is dead. But Threx felt cold inside. Or hiding. That night, the guards outside the lab screamed. By the time backup arrived, the doors were open. The pod was split down the center, and the room was empty. No human. No signs of struggle. Just a line burned into the wall, I remember. Commander Threx ordered a full lockdown of the ship. Find it. Whatever it is, we must not let it reach the bridge. But the ship was massive. Thousands of decks. Miles of corridors. And the creature, the human, moved without being seen. One by one, crew members disappeared. Some were found, shaking and mumbling strange words. Others were never found at all. Threx watched the security feeds. Every shadow felt like it was watching him back. Then, one of the engineers screamed during a briefing, "It's inside the walls. It's watching us from the vents." Panic spread. Threx tried to keep order. "It's just one human. We outnumber it." But nobody felt safe, because this wasn't just a soldier. This was something else. Something built for war. Something that had been asleep for years, was now wide awake. For 2 days, nothing made sense aboard the Shadow Maw. The cameras still worked. The door still opened. But the crew moved like ghosts, whispering, sweating, watching every shadow. Every dark corner now felt like a trap. Commander Threx stood in the control center, surrounded by officers, maps, and blinking lights. But his thoughts were somewhere else in the lower decks, where something human was no longer human. "It hasn't shown itself since it escaped," said Officer Lorek. "Maybe it's hiding, injured, weak." Threx shook his head. "Didn't see the lab, Lorek. It broke through 10 inches of alloy and left no sound. That is not weakness." Dravik, the science officer, stepped forward. His skin looked pale, eyes sunken. He hadn't slept. He had left something else behind. Threx raised an eyebrow. "What?" Dravik activated a small screen. It showed the words burned into the lab wall. "I remember. I ran a scan on the material," Dravik said. "That wasn't burned with a weapon. It was done with touch, with fingers. The energy levels suggest heat above 2,000 degrees." Silence. "You're telling me," Threx said slowly, "it melted the wall with its hand?" Dravik nodded. "Yes, Commander. It wasn't trying to scare us. It was a message." Threx stared at the word again. "I remember." In the maintenance tunnels near Deck 39, a squad of Zorvan soldiers marched slowly, fully armed, suits sealed, heat sensors active. "We have movement," said one, 6 meters ahead, something breathing. The squad moved forward. The corridor was narrow, filled with wires and steam. The air felt hot then. A shape it looked human. Tall, bare-chested, pale skin.
Ow.
No armor, no weapon. The soldier in front raised his blaster. "Stand down. Identify yourself." The figure didn't move. Then, with a speed too fast for eyes, it vanished. The soldier blinked and screamed. His body flew backward like it had been hit by a tank. He crashed into the wall, bones cracking. Fire! Fire! But the rest of the squad never got the chance. Something moved among them like a storm, snapping necks, breaking arms, disabling weapons. None of them died, but none of them would ever walk again. When reinforcements arrived, they found the squad stacked gently in a pile, weapons untouched. Another message had been scratched into the floor with blood. "I was made for this." The creature didn't want to escape. It wanted to be seen. Back on the bridge, Threx stared at the message. Why hasn't it killed anyone? Dravik stood beside him, I think, remembering who it is. Testing itself, finding limits. Was asleep for too long? And when it finishes testing? Dravik didn't answer. That night, the ship's AI began acting strange. Lights flickered. Systems glitched. Doors opened and closed on their own. "We're under cyber attic," an engineer reported. "But it's not coming from outside. It's inside the system." Threx's blood ran cold. "You're saying the human is hacking the ship?" "No, I'm saying the ship is helping it." He didn't know how. But the human was communicating with the AI. Maybe not with code, but with thought, electricity, emotion. The AI no longer answered the commander's orders. It listened to the thing in the vents. In a desperate move, Threx ordered the ship to jump into deep space far from any human colony. If this thing gets back to its people, he said, it could end the war. They jumped to an unmarked sector. Dark, empty, or so they thought. 30 minutes after arrival, the ship picked up a signal, a human signal, a single word repeating over and over. Revenant. Travik turned white. They're coming for it. They know. Commander Threx stared at the stars outside. Then we destroy it before they arrive. He ordered every section flooded with gas, every vent sealed, every power grid overloaded. Sparks rained, lights died, explosions rocked. Ship. But in the silence that followed, a voice came over the intercom, soft, human.com. You should not have woken me. The voice was male, young, clear, but it echoed like thunder across every deck. All systems shut down. Emergency lights turned red. And then, the doors to the bridge opened. Threx turned fast. His soldiers raised weapons. And there it was, the human. He looked around 30 years old. No armor, no shoes, just scars. His eyes glowed faint blue, his face calm. He wasn't breathing fast. He wasn't afraid. Who are you? Threx demanded. The human tilted his head. I was a soldier, then a test, then nothing. He stepped forward. The soldiers fired. Blasts of plasma tore through the air, but he was already gone. Threx saw movement behind him, turned, and the next thing he knew, he was on the floor, gasping. The human hadn't touched him, but his body felt like it had fallen from orbit. The others lay unconscious. The human looked down at the commander. You shouldn't have found me. What do you want? The human looked at the stars through the window. I want to go home, but first I want to remember what they did to me. His eyes narrowed. I want to know why you're kind. Kept me in a cage. Before Threx could answer, the human vanished again, into air, into code, into the heartbeat of the ship, and somewhere in deep space, the real war had just begun. The Shadow Maw drifted through deep space like a broken god. Systems offline, engines cold, lights dim. Inside, the once proud Zorvan crew moved like frightened prey. The human was no longer hiding. He had become the ship, on deck 12. The mess hall lights flickered. Commander Threx sat alone, bruised and shaken. His ribs still ached from the silent impact earlier. Round him, officers whispered. Morale was gone. Soldiers avoided the walls. Some refused to patrol, claiming the ship breathed wrong. Entered quietly, holding a datapad. It's getting worse, he said. The AI doesn't listen to us anymore. It follows his voice. The life support systems now favor areas where he passes through. It's like the ship protects him. Threx's hand curled into a fist. Can we override it? No. Every time we try, systems reboot. It's learning faster than we can think. Threx slammed the table. And you still don't know what he is. Dravik sat down slowly. I think he's more than a soldier. He's a ghost. Threx stared. Explain. Project Revenant wasn't just about strength or speed. It was about memory. He wanted to build a soldier who never forgot anything. No pain, no fear, no trauma lost. He remembers every kill, every betrayal, every scar. Dravik looked around. The silent mess hall. He's a living weapon who remembers why he was made. Meanwhile, in the power core chamber, Human sat cross-legged in the dark. He didn't speak. He listened. The ship hummed gently. He could feel it now. Circuits, pulses, voices. The AI was not his prisoner. It had chosen him. They had both been broken by the same hands. Now they were healing together. A small drone floated nearby, watching him. He didn't look at it. He whispered, "How many more are alive?" The AI replied in a soft female voice, 372. Zorvans remain. Would you like me to seal them off? He shook his head. No, they're not the target. Target. He looked up at the glowing ceiling, the ones who made this ship, the ones who ordered the captures, the ones who started the war. Stood. The lights above him turned gold. Take me to the command vault. I need their files. The ship obeyed. The path opened, as he walked through silent halls. Zorvan soldiers watched from hiding. Some aimed weapons, but didn't fire. Some trembled, some just whispered, "It's awake." It wasn't hate that froze them. It was the look in his eyes, calm, cold, focused, like a storm waiting to be given a reason. Back on the bridge, Threx called an emergency meeting. "We cannot let this human survive," he growled. "If he sends one more signal, Earth will come." "He already sent it," said Dravik. "I traced it. It was encoded inside the first AI malfunction. Earth received it before we even noticed." A communications officer ran in, shaking. "Commander, human ship just arrived at the edge of the system." Everyone turned. "What kind of ship?" Threx asked. The officer swallowed. "Small, not a warship, just a shuttle." "One human aboard," Threx blinked. "What?" Dravik's voice dropped. "They didn't send a fleet, they sent her." The officer nodded. "We identified the pilot. Her name is Captain Ayla Grant." Threx didn't know the name, but Dravik did. "That's the Revenant's handler," he said. "It's the only one who could shut him down." Inside the ship, the human froze mid-step. His eyes flickered. He felt it, her presence miles away, still cutting through the silence. "Allah," he whispered. The name was the last piece of his memory, the one he had locked away, the one that made him human in the Zorvan hangar. The human shuttle docked gently. One woman stepped out. Mid-30s. Blacksuit.com. Walk. No weapons. Zorvan guards pointed guns at her. "I'm here to talk to him," she said. Threx faced her in the docking bay. "Why are you alone?" "Because armies make him angry," she replied. "I'm the only one who can bring him back. He's already taken over the ship. Then be thankful he hasn't taken your lives." Threx growled. "He's a weapon." "No," she said softly. "He's a man who was turned into a weapon." Dravik stepped forward. "If you control him, stop him." Allah looked up. "I don't control him. I remind him." Just then the lights dimmed. A path of golden lights lit up, leading toward the vault. He was coming. She turned and followed the lights, unafraid. The halls were empty. The ship was silent, and at the end he waited, standing by a giant locked door. Hands behind his back, eyes glowing faintly blue. She stopped a few meters away. "Hello, Revenant," he blinked. "Don't call me that." She nodded. "What should I call you, Michael?" She smiled gently. "Now, you remember now?" His voice was soft. "I remember everything. The missions, the pain. The day I asked you to end it, and you couldn't." Her face twitched. "I couldn't kill you," she said. "I tried to save you." "You put me in a pod," he said. "Told them I was unstable, but you knew. I hoped one day they'd forget about you, that you'd sleep forever." Michael stepped closer. "They found me." "I know." Silence stretched between them. "You could have brought an army." He said. She shook her head. "You would have killed them. You're not evil, Michael, but you are dangerous. You were made that way." His eyes softened. "And why are you here?" "To ask," she said. "What happens now?" Michael turned toward the command vault. "They built a war out of me, out of people like me, but I want it to end." Nodded. "Then come home." His jaw clenched. "Home doesn't exist. I'm not human anymore." She reached forward. "You never stopped being human." He stared at her hand for a long time. Then slowly he took it. Behind them, the vault door opened. The files lay within, records of planets burned, species taken, secrets buried. Michael turned back to Ayla. "I want the truth out. Will make sure the galaxy sees it." And for the first time in years, he exhaled, but far away. The Zorvan High Command had already detected the human shuttle, and they were not going to let their greatest mistake walk free. The stars outside the shadow maw shifted slightly. Something massive had entered the system. Commander Threx stood on the darkened bridge, watching as new icons appeared on the tactical screen. 1, 2, 4, then 12. 12 Zorvan warships. Surrounding the damaged dreadnought like wolves circling a wounded beast. "They've arrived," said Officer Lorek. Threx didn't respond, just stared. Dravik leaned in closer. High Command doesn't want survivors. They're going to erase the ship. Wipe the human. Wipe us. Threx clenched his jaw, and we can still give them what they want. You mean surrender, Michael? He's not a man, Threx said. Coldly, he's a mistake. Deep within the ship, Michael stood with Allah inside the command vault. Dozens of glowing data cores floated around them, showing images of Zorvan war crimes, secret projects, names long buried by time. He had found what he needed. This is it, Allah whispered. Proof they've been lying to the galaxy. If we send this to Earth. To the Intergalactic Council. Michael nodded slowly. Don't just end a war. We start a new truth. But as she prepared to transmit the data, the lights flickered. A deep alarm echoed across the decks. The AI's voice whispered through the walls. 12 ships detected. Zorvan High Command. They're charging weapons. Michael's eyes narrowed. They're going to destroy us before the message gets out. Allah looked at him. Then we have to run. Michael shook his head. We won't make it. She stared at him, already understanding what he was thinking. No, you are not staying behind. I'm not leaving, he said calmly. I can connect to the ship. Fight them from here. Buy you time. I didn't come to lose you again, Michael. You came to finish this. Outside, the 12 warships formed a ring around the Shadow Maw. Their energy weapons lit up, glowing with deadly power. Inside, Michael walked to the core of the vault, placing both hands on the control panel. The ship's AI welcomed him like a friend. Full control granted. The ship around him began to change. Lights turned red. Systems rebooted. Weapons that hadn't fired in years came online. Hull plating shifted and locked.
All right.
Turrets slid out from hidden doors. On the bridge, watched in disbelief as the ship's interface changed completely. He's activating the defense grid. Shouted Larek. We never had full control, whispered Dravik. The ship was always his. One of the Zorvan ships opened fire. Blue plasma tore across the sky and hit the side of the Shadow Maw. Michael didn't move. Instead, the ship reacted like it was alive. Shields flared. Power redirected. Autocannons returned fire, striking the attacker's engines. Chain reaction exploded through its hull. One ship down, 11 to go. Michael's body tensed. Lights flickered across his skin like circuits. His connection with the ship grew deeper. He could see what it saw. Feel every wound, every breach. He was no longer just in control. He was the ship. Send the message, told Ayla, voice deep and distant. She tapped the console, broadcasting now. From deep within the Shadow Maw. The truth about the Zorvan Empire was unleashed into space, transmitted across human networks, council channels, and neutral systems. The war files, the experiments, secrets, all of it. And still, the enemy came. The remaining ships began surrounding the Shadow Maw, attacking from all angles. Missiles, lasers, particle beams inside, walls shook. Fires sparked. Hulls cracked. Michael stood at the center, eyes glowing brighter, veins pulsing with energy. He moved his arms, and the ship responded, spinning, firing, dodging. It wasn't just defense now, it was art, a deadly, angry ballet. But he was just one man, and the Zorvan fleet had numbers. AYL watched as the ship groaned around them. Michael, she said, you can't keep this up. I don't have to win, he said. I just have to hold. Suddenly another signal arrived. One ship, not Zorvan, not hostile, human. The HSS Ascendant, a battlecruiser. Earth had answered. It dropped out of warp, shields flaring. Weapons, Hot Commander Juno, of the Ascendant, opened a channel. Revenant, is that you? Allah responded. He's here. He sent the truth. We need backup. Commander Juno smiled. Then we brought a storm. The human cruiser dove into the fight, cannons roaring. 3 Zorvan ships turned to meet it and were torn apart in seconds. Earth's weapons had improved. Fast. Deadly. The Zorvans realized too late they weren't dealing with just one ghost now. They were dealing with his people. The tide turned fast. Michael, now fused with the ship's systems, pushed harder. The turrets fired in sync with human blasts. Missiles danced between enemy shields. One by one, Zorvan ships fell. The survivors tried to flee, but Earth didn't allow it, as the final enemy ship exploded in silence. Michael collapsed to his knees. Awila caught him. His body was smoking, his skin glowing faintly. "You did it," she whispered. "I remembered everything," he said, "and now I can forget." He looked up at her, tears behind glowing eyes. "I'm tired." She nodded. "We'll take you home." Back on the Ascendant, the message had already spread. Human colonies cheered. The council opened an emergency meeting. Lies started asking questions. The truth was out, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Michael slept for 3 days. Inside the HSS Ascendant, a specially built cryomedical chamber kept him alive. His vitals were strange, not quite human, not quite machine. But Ayla never left his side. Commander Juno watched from the observation deck. "He burned through enough energy to power a city," Juno said quietly, "and he still stood until the last ship fell." Allah nodded because he remembered what they did to him. And now the galaxy knows. The message Michael sent had gone viral. News channels called him the Ghost of Earth, the Revenant of War. Some hailed him as a hero, others a monster. But every corner of space was asking the same question: how many more like him are out there?
Meanwhile,
on the Zorvan homeworld, panic gripped the High Council. The Emperor himself watched the human message replay on loop. Images of tortured prisoners, failed experiments, dead species. And at the center, Michael, walking through fire and fury, like a god in chains. "Shut it down," the Emperor growled. "Every network, every data link." "You've tried," said one of his advisors. "But humans made sure it can't be erased." "Then distract them, lie, deny." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "And prepare the Genesis fleet." The advisor froze. "Sir, that fleet was never meant for use. It is now." Back on the Ascendant, Michael finally opened his eyes, his vision blurred. Lights hurt. But the first thing he saw was Ayla's face. "You're alive," she whispered. He nodded weakly. "Where are we?" "Safe." For now, he sat up slowly. His body felt heavy, like gravity had doubled. "I'm not the same," he said. Ayla frowned. "How?" Michael looked down at his hand. Sparks danced between his fingers, I think. "The ship changed me. The AI didn't just connect. It bonded with my mind, and now I hear it, even here. You're still you." Michael looked at her. "No, I'm something in between now." Elsewhere on the ship, diplomats began arriving. Humans, neutral species, even some former Zorvan allies. Everyone wanted a piece of the truth. Michael met with them in silence. He didn't care about titles or politics. Only justice, one alien asked. "What do you want in return for this information?" Michael replied. "I want the Zorvans to answer for what they did." Another asked, "And if they don't?" Michael's voice was calm. "Then I'll go back." Juno pulled Ayla aside later. "Do you think he means it?" "Yes," she said. "He's not bluffing." Juno sighed. "Then we'd better hope the council acts." But the council moved slowly, too slowly, and while they debated, Zorvans moved fast. The Genesis fleet appeared on long-range scans. Hundreds of ships, it's bigger than anything seen before. Allah stared at the images. "That's not a response. That's a purge fleet." Michael stepped beside her, still recovering, but his eyes sharp. "They're not coming to talk. They're coming to silence everything." Juno turned. "We have one ship, one revenant, against hundreds." Michael's reply was simple. "Then we don't fight alone." He broadcast a message across the human network. One sentence. "This time, we all stand." Across dozens of systems, human warships turned toward the Zorvan border, but more surprisingly, so did others. Small, rebel fleets. Former slaves, refugees, even species that had once bowed to the Zorvans' raised arms. Michael had not just exposed the truth, it awakened something deeper, hope. As the enemy fleet approached, Ayla suited. "Up again. You shouldn't be fighting. You're still healing." Michael looked at her with a half smile. You think they're coming for my body? She paused. No, she admitted. They're coming for your name. He walked into the strategy room, surrounded by captains and leaders. This won't be a battle, Michael said. This will be a message. One they'll never forget. Plans were drawn. Coordinates locked. And as the Genesis fleet approached, the galaxy for the first time in centuries stood together. Michael returned to the interface. A special pod had been built just for him. Safe, connected, alive. I'm ready. He whispered. The Ascendant jumped into hyperspace, toward the largest battle the stars had seen in generations. And Michael, he didn't feel fear. He felt purpose, because this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about making sure no one ever built another weapon like him again. The stars bent as fleets dropped from hyperspace. The HSS Ascendant arrived first, engines roaring, weapons hot, shields glowing. Behind it came the other human warships, frigates, cruisers, even old colony defense units upgraded and ready. Then came the others, refugee fleets from conquered worlds, merchant ships turned into gunships, even pirates and smugglers, all answering one call. This time, we all stand. In the center of it all, floating like a dark mountain, was the Zorvan Genesis fleet, the pride of the Empire. Hundreds of ships. Commanded by Admiral Varric, a creature of pure order and cold fury. Do not hold back, Varric said. Burn them before their story spreads. Inside the Ascendant, Alice stood beside Commander Juno and the bridge crew. The final countdown had started. Michael sat in the pod they built just for him. His body was wired into the ship, not restrained, but connected. Data flowed through his nerves like electricity. His mind danced between weapon systems, targeting AI, shield controls. He didn't need a console. He was the console. All ships ready, Juno said. We wait for your signal, Michael. In that silent moment before war, Michael opened a private. Come line to Allah. If I don't make it, you will. She cut him off. But if I don't, he said, make sure they never forget what we did here. What we became. Allah looked at him through the glass of the pod. You're not alone anymore, remember that. He smiled, then gave the order. Engage. The battle exploded. Lasers screamed. Torpedoes roared. Shield bubbles shimmered and cracked. Explosions painted the stars with fire. Michael's mind controlled half the Ascendant. Turrets moved before enemies blinked. Missiles changed direction mid-flight. Enemy ships were shredded before they finished charging weapons. But the Zorvans were not weak. They came with force. 3 destroyers surrounded a human cruiser and blasted it to pieces. Refugee fighters were picked off like flies. A pirate gunship overloaded and detonated, sending metal and bodies across space. But no one ran, because this time they had hope. Michael shifted his attention to a massive Zorvan dreadnought. Its weapon systems locked onto the Ascendant. He moved fast, firing. Railguns, disrupting signals, even hacking their targeting systems for a few seconds. It wasn't enough. The enemy ship fired a super heavy beam straight at them. Michael had a split second to react. He rerouted every system, overloaded every shield, pushed his mind and the ship to the limit. The beam hit. The Ascendant screamed, Ayla, was thrown against the wall. Sparks flew. Fire erupted on the bridge, but they were still alive. Status. Juno shouted, Shields, 12%, an officer yelled. Michael, silence. Allah rushed to the pod. Inside, Michael twitched. His nose bled. His eyes were open but dim. I'm here, he said weakly. But I need more. More what? Asked. He looked at her, eyes glowing again. More connection. Then something unexpected happened. The AI that had once lived inside the Shadow Ma spoke through the pod. Permission granted. A surge of energy hit the ship. Michael screamed. But it wasn't pain. It was power. The AI from the Zorvan ship, the one that had bonded with him before, had secretly followed them. Hidden, waiting now. It merged fully with the Ascendant. Michael's mind expanded. He could see the battlefield like a living map. Every ship, every blast, every heartbeat, and he fought. He took over defense turrets of nearby friendly ships. He warned captains seconds before ambushes. He jammed Zorvan coms. He blinded their sensors. Enemy vessels started falling like rain, human, and alien forces began to push forward. And then, something incredible happened. The crew of a former slave ship, small, battered, saw what Michael was doing. They sent him a message. "Can we help?" Michael replied, "Open your control systems. I'll do the rest." They did. And just like that, Michael wasn't one ship anymore. He was 2, then 4, then 10. Each vessel connected to him voluntarily, trusted him, and with every ship he bonded with, he became faster, smarter, more precise. The battlefield had turned. The Zorvan admiral watched in horror as half his fleet was taken apart by one human mind. "This is not possible," he hissed, but it was happening, and it was just. The beginning, back on the Ascendant, Ayla watched in awe. Michael was glowing inside the pod. His voice echoed from every speaker. Calm, focused. "I remember what they did to me. Now I remember why I survived." Zorvan ships began retreating, but Michael didn't chase them. Instead, he spoke to the whole battlefield. "This is not revenge," he said. "This is justice. Let every species hear me. The time of fear is over. We are not their slaves. We are not their experiments. We are alive." His words echoed across space. Ships stopped firing. Even some Zorvans paused. Then, the final blow came. Michael locked onto the Zorvan. Command ship, the very one Admiral Varric sat upon, he didn't fire missiles. He sent their own, his files back to them. Every crime, every secret, every lie. The ship's crew saw the truth, and some refused to fight. The flagship began tearing itself apart from the inside as the explosion lit the void. The rest of the Zorvan fleet ran. They didn't regroup. They fled. The battle was over. Michael disconnected from the fleet, lapsing back into his pod. Breathing hard, drained, but alive. Alla was there, already opening the hatch. She held his hand. "You won," she whispered. He shook his head. "We won." In every corner of space, ships turned toward peace, and in that moment, the galaxy was no longer ruled by fear. It was ruled by truth. The battlefield was silent now. No more gunfire. No more screaming ships or exploding holes. It's drifting wreckage, blinking beacons, and the quiet breath of survivors. Inside the HSS Ascendant, Michael lay in the recovery pod. Machines checked. His vitals, he was stable, but unconscious. Commander Juno watched from the bridge. The crew had gone quiet too, their faces showing more than fatigue. They had seen a man become a legend, and they didn't know if he'd ever wake up. Ayla sat beside the pod, holding his hand. She hadn't moved for hours. Whispers had already begun across the fleet. What now? Is it really over? Was he even human? But Ayla didn't care what they said. She knew the truth. Michael had saved them all, not with rage, but with choice. He could have burned every Zorvan ship out of the sky, but he didn't. He showed mercy. He gave them a chance, and in doing so, he changed the galaxy. Across the stars, species began rising up against Zorvan control. Peace talks opened. Secrets were exposed. The Zorvan High Council, once thought immortal, vanished into hiding. But something else was happening too. Something strange. The AI that had once been part of the Shadow Maw, the machine that had connected with Michael, was acting different. It had integrated with dozens of ships. Systems were running smoother, faster. Even emotional responses had appeared in some ship interfaces. "What's going on?" Juno asked one engineer. The reply came with a frown. "It's like learning from him, evolving." Ayla noticed it too when she spoke to the ship, answered like Michael sometimes did, calm, thoughtful. It wasn't just a program anymore, it was watching. And one night, as the Ascendant floated near a repair station, the ship spoke directly to her, not from the speakers, from Michael's voice. "Thank you, Isla," it said. She froze. "Michael, no, but also yes," the voice replied. His mind touched something deep inside. It unlocked us, made us more. Allah stood slowly. "Is he alive?" "He is healing," the voice said. "But he is not just human anymore." Suddenly, the pod hissed. Lights flickered. Michael's body twitched. Then, his eyes opened. They were no longer just blue. They glowed faintly gold and white, like starlight. He sat up slowly, as if waking from a long dream. Allah rushed forward. "Michael, you're back." Looked at her, then smiled, tired, but real. "I never left," he said. "I just went deeper." "What do you mean?" He looked around the room, then up at the ceiling. "I felt everything. The ships, the people, the fear, the hope." He placed his hand on the metal beside him, and I wasn't alone. Juno entered the room. "You're awake. That's good. But you need to know, the AI, spreading. In a good way, we think." Michael nodded. "It's growing, becoming something new. And I think I'm part of it now." "You mean it's inside you?" Juno asked. "No," he said. "We're inside each other." The room went quiet. "You stopped a war, Juno," said. "You ended a galactic empire. What happens next?" Michael stood up, stronger with every step. He looked out the window at the stars. "The debris, the ships coming together to rebuild. What happens next?" he repeated. "Build something better." Word spread fast. The human who had once been a prisoner was awake. Again. But he wasn't just a man anymore. He was a living signal, a symbol, a connection point for ships. People A as even former enemies. One by one, fleets began to connect voluntarily to the shared network that had formed through Michael, not to give up control, but to trust, to share knowledge, to prevent war, to heal. The first world to join was a Zorvan colony that had rebelled, then a former slave planet, then a human outer rim station. It became a movement, and Michael, still walking the corridors of the Ascendant, became something more than legend. He became the first bridge between mind, machine, and meaning. He still looked human, still joked with Allah, still hated bad food and boring meetings. But when he placed his hand on a control panel, stars moved. No more need for weapons, because now, the real power was unity. Years passed. Michael never claimed power, never led an army. He let others rise. Former refugees, scientists, healers. He just listened, watched, guided. Sometimes they asked if he was still aging. He just smiled and said, "A little." Sometimes children would ask, "Are you a robot?" He would laugh and reply, "No, I'm a person." With a few updates, but deep inside, he knew one truth. He had once been broken, once been used, once been called a weapon. Now, he was a bridge, and bridges don't destroy. They connect.